Okay. Well, I wanted to share with you the message that Simon Sinek had for his employees. He recently did a video, and it's a conversation he had on Zoom with his employees at his business. And it's called "These Are Not Unprecedented Times." And I thought the message was apropos for today. Uh, Simon's message kind of went like this, that these are not unprecedented times. There have been many, many times in the history when change has come about and profoundly impacted the lives and the economy of everyone. And some people were able to reinvent themselves, and some people simply failed. So we can think of the time when the internet arrived. Every video store is now out of business because of streaming. And we know now that Uber is putting a lot of taxi companies out of business because they can't seem to reinvent themselves. Amazon is putting a lot of retailers out of business because they're unable to reinvent themselves to the new reality. So right now we're seeing a lot of law firms close down during this pandemic because they just cannot reinvent themselves. A friend of mine in Texas said he anticipates that about 20 to 30% of the family law firms or lawyers in that community will not survive this pandemic in a business sense, that they'll be shutting down their businesses. And other businesses are just divorce professionals, or other divorce professionals are just waiting for the world to go back to normal. Well, I just don't see that happening. I believe this pandemic will profoundly impact the world, and we're not going back to the old ways. This is a new reality. This is a new world. So I want to congratulate you. We had 350 or 60 people register for this webinar, and you are the people who are willing to reinvent yourself, be creative, and you're going to come out of this thriving. I mean, there's no doubt we're in a dark tunnel right now. It's a strange time. It's hard for everyone. But you're here because you want to find new ways of doing things. And let me tell you, you're going to come out of this pandemic stronger than ever before. You're the ones that are going to thrive. And so congratulate yourself.
Yeah, and stronger. We're all learning new ways to do things and new tools and working from home. So I think a lot of that is going to carry forward. I want to start with a bit of gratitude, obviously for the first responders who are going above and beyond, the OACP for helping Brian and I promote today's webinar. We have Michelle Mulchin, who's monitoring our chat room, and we're going to be assembling all the Q&A and answering everybody's questions. Maybe not today, but Brian's going to talk a little bit more about how we're going to answer everybody's questions. Easily, these topics that Brian and I are talking about could be 1-hour webinars on their own. So what we're doing this morning is providing a general overall big picture of problems professionals are facing when working at home. Our clients are scared and they're worried. So this is a chance for everybody in our webinar to step up and show some leadership, provide our clients with some guidance, let everyone know that there are still options available, limited options with the court, but collaborative practice certainly offers a great alternative, as well as mediation, arbitration, and other platforms that are available.
So we're pretty lucky, I think, Russ, to be able to have this webinar, to have this discussion, to be healthy enough, and to have a career that can be reinvented, to have the technology, the opportunity to have these discussions. You know, we're pretty lucky, and I for one, and I know you too, are very grateful that we're in this position. It's really, really wonderful. So now, if you have questions.
Some of the tips we're providing, Brian and I have been encouraging remote practice for our associates for a number of years. So some of these tips seem easy to us, but for people who are just starting to learn to work from home, everything's new. So that's sort of what we're going to try to walk through people today. Sorry, Brian.
No problem. If you have questions, I know you will. I sent an email to everyone yesterday with a link to a Survey Monkey so that you can post your questions to the Survey Monkey. Michelle, if you can go onto the chat, and she'll put a link to the Survey Monkey in the chat box, which you can copy and paste into your browser, and then any questions that come up, send them to us on SurveyMonkey. We're going to do another webinar on April 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We're going to send you an invitation because we have all of your emails. We'll send you an invitation to that webinar. And what we're going to do is look at all those questions, try to pick the top ones that we can manage. And you'll see in the SurveyMonkey that I say, any easy questions, direct them to me. Tough questions, they all go to Russell, please.
Yeah, right.
And we also sent you, last night I sent you the materials that we'll make reference to, which are much more detailed. We have some of our policies, some templates, and other information, a report from Russ's IT provider. In that material. It was sent to you as an attachment in an email last night, but we also have it in a Google Drive, and Michelle can put that in the chat box as well, so that you can link to that and download that document. You're free to use anything that you see there. We hope it's helpful. Okay.
We also have Zoom etiquette and protocols, which we've included in the materials. Some of them are common sense. Some of them just make your Zoom meetings run better. You know, basic things like looking into the camera, type quietly, mute if it's not your turn. Dress appropriately, obviously, for the meeting. We're going to get into that in a little bit more detail. It's a suggestion that some of these etiquette protocols could be put right into participation agreements. You need to be mindful if you're recording that you get everybody's consent in advance. It's also a good tool if you're recording your meetings for the person who's taking minutes to prepare the minutes. If there is a verbal agreement reached, you can make an audio recording of that verbal agreement to use later on if there's any dispute as to what was agreed to. So look for those templates and those protocols in your materials. It's good to start off each Zoom meeting if you have a new collaborative practice professional team or clients, just to give them some basic tips on how to get started.
And this applies to anybody who's doing mediations as well, that the idea is to come to an agreement on how you're going to conduct yourself, how everyone's going to conduct themselves in whatever process you're using, and put it in writing. So yeah, we've got 11 different Zoom etiquette tips that you might consider. And then Joe O'Sullivan and Lynn Passmore are collaborative professionals in I believe in the United Kingdom. They provided us with an addendum to the participation agreement, which has a lot of really great suggestions for you to consider. And I think they're going to be helpful if you're starting a collaborative case right now. And you should also, even if you've got a collaborative case underway, you might consider adding these to your participation agreement, just so that everyone's clear as to how, if you're going to use Zoom, will it be recorded? Who will be in the room, able to be in the room? What happens if there is a recording done by mistake or something? They've really put some good thought into it. But, you could probably do better. So just take these as templates and something you can work on and use. The other thing I wanted to say is, just because we're doing these cases on Zoom or some other video conferencing platform, don't forget to do things in accordance to the protocols you've already established in your communities. Circulate the agenda in advance. Have the pre-brief. Super important. You have a meeting of the professionals before the meeting. It's important that you have a debrief after the meeting. Do it by Zoom and follow all the standard steps that you would in your collaborative case, or if it's a mediation, or if it's a four-way. How would you conduct yourself in the past? Just translate that into to Zoom. You always said, stay on time, right, Russ?
Yeah.
Stay on time. Oh, this is my favorite slide.
Yeah. So this actually happened. Maintain a professional image and decorum. There was a video going around on the internet where a lady was in a Zoom conference call and then went to the bathroom and forgot to turn off her video. So everybody watched her go to the bathroom. So avoid track pants and ripped t-shirts when in a professional meeting. Your clients are still going to expect you to be professional and you should dress professionally. Try not to talk over each other. Um, there's another case where we did a pre-brief call and the other lawyer forgot about the call but came on the Zoom and ended up conducting it in his bathrobe. So he kind of looked like Hugh Hefner. Some of my staff have a crush on him and wanted me to get a picture of him in his bathrobe. But so just be mindful of your decorum and maintaining your professional image.
Absolutely. And then there's the Greek chorus, right?
Right. So you need to be mindful also of who's listening and who's influencing your client. This was a problem we've had in normal collaborative meetings when clients would go home and family members or friends would start acting as the Greek chorus in the background. This is even a new problem that's continuing when people are in isolation in the same house. Extended family members or other people may be in isolation with them. So it's ideal to avoid have third parties or family members participating in the background, especially not participating in Zoom calls and collaborative practice meetings. This is a really helpful area where if you have a family professional or neutral working with the family to raise any red flags and speak to this offline with the client before the Zoom meeting
Yeah, and
starts.
you have to think about safety as well, especially if there's been any issues in the past with safety. And some alternatives might be that one of the parties goes in their car and
Right.
participate in the process that way. Or certainly, different rooms is a good suggestion, but you need to consciously talk about it and be aware of it to make sure that people have safety and privacy, right, during the whole thing.
Right. So working remotely, it's important to schedule breaks. What my advice would be is maintain your routine and schedule as much as you can. Obviously, you're going to need to schedule breaks if you have kids at home. Pets are going to need bio breaks, obviously. Try to maintain your professional contacts when working remotely and try to keep your schedule as consistent as possible.
Yeah, and if you're having a settlement meeting, you might build into that some time to break to um, uh, for your pets, for example, or you might be able to schedule a time to spend a little bit of time with your children or do whatever you have to. So you got to be practical here and talk about it in advance, and so that you can work it. So we've got a poll. I'm just going to launch that poll. I hope you can see it. And it's asking how much of you are working what percentage of time people are working from home. So we've got about 10% of you have answered, 20%. It's interesting to see the results coming up. We have, 46% of people are pretty much 100% working from home with the odd trip to pick up stuff or whatever. Another 17% are in the 50 to 95% range, and 5% have always worked from home, no change there. So only about 13% are working from home less than 10% of the time. So we've got 77% have done the poll. We'll wait a few more minutes.
You want to go to the next slide while we're waiting, Brian?
If we can, I'm not sure. Oh, yes.
All right, so lighting. So this is me with lighting. This is me without lighting. So it makes a fairly big difference. A few tips: avoid backlight wherever possible. Brian, you'll see behind him, uses a neutral curtain to cut off the rest of his house. Consider getting LED panel lighting. It's rather inexpensive. It's available on Amazon and other retailers. You'd be surprised how inexpensive it is. When you set up your lighting, just remember when you're driving a car, you've got 10 and 2 where you put your hands. That's where you'd put your lighting as well. Put it above you on a 45-degree angle. For the lights I have, I find 53% power is a nice balance between white and yellow light, gives you a bit of more of a warmer look. And I also run these lights at 44% Kelvin. Want to go to the next slide, Brian?
Yeah. Let me, so you also took, so I just have a little ring light that I bought. It was about $40 at Amazon, and it produces a nice light in front of me. I like the background just so that it's not, my background isn't distracting, because it's just pure white, and it's just a sheet that is draped down behind me. So regarding sound, I'm just using I have a Surface Pro laptop I just bought, and I'm just using the webcam and the sound on it. But I know you have a much more sophisticated system.
Yeah, the mic on my computer is pretty good, but I went and bought this Yeti Blue USB. It hooks right into the computer. If you're working with a desktop, it may not have a microphone. You may need to get speakers as well. Be mindful of your background noise. If you have kids or dogs in the background, we've had lots of professionals to simply use their ear pods or headphones to help reduce the background noise.
If you do research on it, there's a recommendation that you have a headphone with a microphone on it, and I would have done that if I thought of doing it sooner, because I understand that produces a much better quality sound.
Yeah, the headsets work good.
And that's what you'll see. All of the people on TV, most of the people are using headsets with a microphone, and so that's on my shopping list. I think it's a good investment, and they're not tremendously expensive either.
Also reduces the ambient noise, so it makes it easier if you have a number of people on your Zoom call.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little about Zoom bombing. I don't know if people have heard about this. What this is people will will get into your Zoom meeting, and they might start speaking with inappropriate racial slurs, or some will take over the screen and start playing pornography on your screen, and it just is tremendously disruptive. I read an article about a woman who was defending her PhD when somebody got in as a Zoom bomber and started playing pornography. They were able to lock the meeting and delete the people, remove the participants who were doing this, and she was able to continue on and complete her defense of her PhD. So Zoom bombing, I've spoken to other people who have had this happen to them. So, but Zoom has come up with a way of responding to it. So you'll see now at the bottom of your Zoom meeting is a button called Security. And when you press that, you have some options. One is to enable the waiting room. And that's a really great thing, because that allows you to decide who gets to go into your Zoom meeting. They have to be approved before they enter the Zoom meeting. And the other, I think the most important one, is you have the ability to lock the meeting. And when you lock the meeting, nobody else can get into the meeting. So that really prevents the people who might want to bomb your Zoom meeting from entering. But if someone gets in, definitely lock the meeting. And then you can see that at the bottom near that yellow arrow, there's a remove participant button. And that's what you do. You press that button. It shows you a list of the participants. Click, they're gone. So that's the way to stop it if you're stuck with a Zoom bomber. The other thing that now Zoom has done is they're insisting that there be passwords go out to with every new meeting, and that somehow also helps to minimize the people who might be able to bomb your Zoom meeting. So use the passwords. Very good idea. We wanted to talk about breakout rooms. So, you know, in the traditional collaborative case or mediation, we would have an opportunity for people to go to a breakout room. So one lawyer and their client might go with the family professional to one room, and the other goes to a different room. Well, you can do that in Zoom, and it's pretty cool. But the trick to it is enabling it. We have a detailed description in the materials that was sent to you, so you can go and look at that. But how you do it is you go to their website, zoom.us, you log in, and then you go on the left side, you'll see settings, and we'll click on that, and then you scroll down and toggle a button that says breakout rooms. And once you do that, then you'll have at the bottom of your screen that little icon that's indicated with the yellow arrow on the slide that shows you have breakout rooms. And so then you can begin using this great feature. So one of the nice features of the breakout rooms is that you can pre-select who's going to be in the breakout rooms. So when you're scheduling the meeting, you have an option to pre-select who's going to be in the various rooms. So you can create as many breakout rooms as you want. As you can see on the screen, breakout room number 1 has 2 participants. And what you do is where it says add participants, you see that on the slide, all you're doing is inputting their email address and putting them in a particular room. You can move people from room to room once you begin things. Russ, you're kind of covering your camera now.
Yeah, sorry.
You can move things from people from one room to another room. And if you're the host, you can go to different rooms yourself. So if a neutral professional is hosting the meeting, they might go to room 1, and in room 1 would be lawyer 1 with client 1. And in room 2 is lawyer 2 with client 2. The family professional can go from one room to the other. And then when you're done, you can click a button to say that the breakout rooms will be stopped, and it broadcasts that to all the rooms. They have about a minute to come back into the main session, and then everybody's pushed back into that main meeting as well. So it's pretty cool. Now in the materials, we have a link to a really great video that goes into much more detail about how to use the breakout rooms, and it shows you exactly how it works. So I encourage you to look at that. Okay, Russ?
Yeah, those are great tips, Brian. So this is sort of the new normal. Most practice groups
Russ,
are going to have
actually, we've got
a poll. Let's do a poll.
we got a poll. Yeah.
All right.
I have to figure it out here. Okay, so we've got a poll about how you're using how you're conducting remote meetings. Which is your favorite platform? So we'll give you a couple of minutes. If it's phone, we're talking about Zoom mostly. We like Zoom, but Skype is available. Loom is another one. Microsoft Teams. My kids at school are using Google Meets. FaceTime works great if both people have an Apple product. So yeah, so it looks so far, 65% of you have voted, and it's about almost 80% of you are using Zoom. But you know, phone works as well. The disadvantage of the phone is you don't have that visual, so you don't have the body language and able to see what's going on. You can't feel what the mood is in the room as well as you can with video. So, but phone sometimes I call it old school, and sometimes that works as well. So I'm just going to end the poll in about 2 seconds here. 80% voted. Thank you. And I'll share you the results. So you can see 77% are using Zoom, and that's the primary thing. So that's a good thing we are talking about Zoom today, Russ.
Yeah, just a note on that. There's the free version. If you buy the upgraded version, I think it's 12 or 15 bucks a month. The free version limits your meetings, I think, to about 45 minutes or so. So I would encourage everybody to buy the professional version. Also, it helps support the programmers and the people who are putting that program together
Yeah,
for us.
it's $15 US. It's about $20 Canadian, and it's well worth it because
I agree.
yeah.
So this is what the new normal looks like for practice groups. Carrie Hensel and I did a joint York-Durham collaborative practice study session just after businesses were shut down and everybody was asked to stay home. So this is kind of a fun screenshot. If you look in your bottom left, you'll see Brian on the treadmill. What was interesting
Multitasking,
about
it's
this,
called multitasking.
yeah, right. What's interesting about this is Zoom holds 25 people per screen. So we had 46 members in this practice group. So we had 2 screens, so you can scroll back and forth. And it almost, it's almost like the A team and the B team or the bench warmers. And I say that because I realized as the meeting progressed, the people who put their hands up or contributed more would shift over to the first screen. So everybody knows Brian Korb likes to voice his opinion. He's there top and center on the first screen.
We love you, Brian.
Yeah, so it was kind of fun just to see how a large group like this can interact. One of the basic tips is everybody mutes unless they want to talk, so it reduces the ambient noise.
And then what we do is our protocol is you just raise your hand, and whoever's chairing the meeting can see the raised hand and
Yep.
call on people. So
And there's a hand emoji you can click too.
yeah.
So this is a great way to stay connected with other professionals in your community. There's a connectedness that comes with the video that you don't get in phone calls or just audio Zooms. Carrie and I are still offering, I think the OACP has a link somewhere, to run these study groups initially to help practice groups get this off the ground.
So we have a meeting every day. Oh, by the way, some people are raising your hands. We can't connect with you and join you into this webinar. So please don't raise your hands. It's just use the chat if you want to make a comment or have a question, but we're not able to have other speakers join. So I just wanted to talk about, we have full team office meetings Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then we have a lawyer-only meetings Tuesdays and Thursdays. So every day of the week we have meetings. My office manager also has meetings with the administrative staff and with the law clerks on a daily basis. It's super important to keep connected. I just saw a program by the Ontario Bar Association yesterday about mentoring, and they talk about the legal profession is the loneliest profession. There should be a song about that. The loneliest profession, and it's just going to be exasperated by the fact that we're in isolation. So it's the way to combat that is to schedule regular meetings with your staff. So now I realize that some of you have maybe 1 or 2 staff members. Well, connect with them, and maybe some of you are solely working on your own. Many of the family professionals don't have any staff, but set up some meetings with other family professionals so that you stay connected with other people in the community, sharing ideas, supporting each other. Russ and I are in contact from about 8 a.m. till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, sharing ideas.
Until the wine runs out, I think.
That's right. Then we're start again in the next morning.
Yeah,
so,
this is a great tip, Brian, and celebrate victories. And what we do with our firm, we run it each day at a certain time. We have a few minutes where we talk about new and news. So we'll talk about cases coming out of the SCJ, or we'll talk about practice directions that have come out. Or a lawyer will have a certain result on an emergency issue. So we'll discuss that, but also celebrate the victories, our birthdays. We had a law student Zoom in from England. She's actually in Arizona isolating, and it was her birthday. So at the end of our team meeting, she Zoomed in for a few minutes, and the whole team wished her a happy birthday. So it's a great way to stay connected.
Absolutely. Okay, now we're going to get to some substantive stuff, signing documents. I electronically, so I wasn't sure if this was actually legal or not, and so I looked into it. And in Ontario, there is a law, and has been on the books for quite some time, that said it was legal, but not for wills. Now there's been a new change to the law that permits wills to be signed remotely. I didn't look into all the nuances of that law. So I know people are here from all over North America and perhaps the world. So you're going to have to look into your own jurisdiction to look at what the law says in your jurisdiction. But certainly in ours here in Ontario, you can sign documents by law. So we have two different ways of doing it. One is the DocuSign, which is what Russ's office uses. So can you describe how that works?
Yeah, I'm not going to take a super deep dive. This is a really easy program to use. You download the document as a PDF, you add your recipients, you drag into the fields the areas that you want completed. You can add a message and then send the document. There's detailed slides. Some of them are up here. We also have this information in more detail in the materials. Very user-friendly. We completed a collaborative practice agreement a few weeks ago where the wife needed the signed separation agreement to get the financing for the new home she had purchased, but everybody was in isolation. We used DocuSign to execute the final agreement, and she took it to the bank and it was fine. We can even attest to it at a later date or certify it if the banks require. So DocuSign is certainly one of the many programs that are out there. That's what we're using, and we found it very easy to use.
Yeah, it makes it. I like the idea of making it very easy for the for your clients to see where to sign and how to do it. So it's a nice program. We also use Adobe, and I think most divorce professionals have Adobe. It's a great program for working with PDFs. But Adobe has a million different options to it. It can be confusing. So I put on the slide here, what you're looking for is fill and sign, and which is that little purple pen signing documents. If you click on that and enable that, then what you'll see at the top of the screen is a button that says sign, and it looks like the image that's on the screen right now with the pen about to sign a document. So it's all you do is click on that icon, and then you have three options. So you can take a photograph of your signature and upload it to your computer, and then using Adobe, you can download that photograph of your signature and place it right where you want it placed on the document. Or you can just type it into the computer, and Adobe creates kind of a uses scroll, it kind of creates a signature for you. It's not your exact signature, but it's a sign of your which functions as a signature. The third option is to use, if you have a touch screen, to actually use your finger on the screen and sign the document on the screen, and then insert that into your computer. So it's surprisingly easy to do, and if you've got Adobe, you're ready to go and sign documents remotely right now. So we've got a couple more polls here. Let me see if I can get those working here. Poll. Okay. Are you executing documents remotely? Let's see what everyone's doing. We have a total of 295 people on the call right now. So some are never doing it. It's interesting. Occasionally, about half of the people are less than 50% of the time are using it. So,
Can you just put the results up, Brian?
well, they're just coming in live
Oh,
to
okay.
me, and then I'll be able to post it, the results in just a minute after I end the poll. Then I can share the results.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got 76. I'll end the poll now, and I'll share the results. 41% are using it, about 50% of the less, occasionally, which is really quite stunning, because I bet a year ago 90% would say not using it at all. But you're reinventing how you're practicing as a divorce professional, and bravo to you.
It's the new normal. If you're in isolation and you don't want clients coming into your office to execute documents, this is a great alternative.
Okay, we've got another poll we'll just do quickly. And what type of documents are you executing remotely? So retainers or other internal documents, separation agreements, witness on documents, commissioning documents, just to get a flavor of what everyone's doing here.
These are great polls, Brian.
You had some great ideas, Russ.
It's a great way for the audience to interact, since we don't have the hands or the regular Zoom meeting. So this is a good way to get everybody's feedback.
Okay, I'm just going to end the poll there, share the results. 80% internal documents, signing retainers and internal documents. Some are doing some separation agreements, about 42% of you. Excellent. Witnessing, 29%. Commissioning documents, 26%. Wow, that's amazing. Really, really evidence that you people are reinventing yourselves right today. So next one is witnessing and commissioning. So this was pretty confusing to me. The Law Society looked at it and said, well, we don't actually, this is in Ontario, so you need to look at what your Law Society has done in your jurisdiction to know what the law is. But I'll just tell you what's happening in Ontario, and you can look for it in your own jurisdiction. In Ontario, the Law Society says, well, the law is the best practices require physical presence, and the Law Society doesn't apply the law. But they then went on to say, we're interpreting the law that due to the COVID virus, presence is not requiring physical presence. So we had to look at that, and then they said, do it your own risk sort of thing, make your own decision. So at our firm, we came up with our policy. We use Zoom to watch clients sign documents and witness them. And then we put a statement on the document that it was witnessed by way of Zoom. Now in the materials, we also do this with commissioning as well. So you will see in the materials, our policy is written out in detail for our firm. To copy and paste, use it as you wish, make it better. Probably could be made much better. But we also, I included a template for how we change make reference to the fact that it was Zoom. So that's what we're doing.
Materials are great.
When it comes to executing separation agreements, this is what we've come up with as best practices, is to first look at adding a clause that allows for counterparts, which means that there might be two separation agreements signed separately, but together they form one binding contract. We've got a precedent for a counterpart as well. And then include in that, make reference to the electronic signature, that the electronic signature will be acceptable to both parties and binding. just sort of a restatement of what the law is anyway in Canada, or I should say in Ontario, that's the law. When it comes to the affidavit of independent legal advice, our lawyers are not actually sitting with the client. And so we have amended the affidavit of independent legal advice to indicate that they weren't physically present during the time the separation agreement was signed. But there's no obligation to be physically present when you're giving independent legal advice on an agreement. So we just changed the clause to provide that there was independent legal advice, and it was provided by Zoom. Again, that's in the materials. Use it as you wish. The other thing is, now we've just talked about witnessing documents. You can do it remotely using Zoom, but we're also encouraging the use of an adult independent witness who can be physically present. So your client is in a room, some other adult is physically present at the same time, and they sign as the witness. And we're participating by way of Zoom, watching that's being signed. That's another good practice that I would suggest.
If that's possible. Ideally not the spouse, but yeah.
Yeah, not the spouse, but yeah, it might not be possible, and then you can go back to remote witnessing. But
Right.
anyway, that's another option for you to
But
consider.
some families have extended families in the home and other adults in the home.
You know, and I've read about lawyers who are meeting with clients across a car in a parking lot or something
Yeah.
like that. And you know what? Yeah, that's ideal in the sense that you're physically present, but I just don't think it's worth the risk. So I'm telling our lawyers, don't do that. We don't want anybody to get sick. We don't want to spread the virus. We need to find new ways of doing things that are still legally binding and will work. And this is the policy we've developed. I heard of one firm, which I thought was brilliant. They have a glass wall on the outside of their firm, and they have a mail slot in the door, and they would slide the documents, and then they set up a signing table just outside of their firm. The client's documents are put on the signing table. Clients come, and the witnesses watch the document being signed through the glass wall, and then the documents are slid back into the law firm through the mail slot. That's great, but you'd have to have that exact setup to be able to work it.
Another option, Brian, is if you're in court, you can do a consent order by 14B to get an order in accordance with the document that was executed remotely, and just set out how it was executed.
Right. So those are some of our thoughts. The other thing that our law society has developed is a way for us to confirm our client's identity remotely. So our exact policy, again, is in the materials, and you can look at that. But what we're doing is we're getting the client to send us their identification, probably a driver's license. We get it both sides, front and back. You take a photo on their phone or whatever and send it to us in advance. We then have that document, and we have a Zoom meeting where we can look at the document and look at the client and confirm their identity. And then we keep records of that process. So you'll see in the materials our record, what happened, how it was done, so that there's no question that we complied with the Law Society's requirements. So again, it's zooming in to do the confirmation of identity.
And precedents are in the handout. So Brian's done a great job putting it together. So top technology challenges. This is, I reached out to my IT person and asked what questions he's getting, what challenges are his clients facing. The interview is annotated as part of the materials. It's a much shorter annotation from a much longer phone call. Again, we could probably spend easily an hour talking about each one of these topics. So this is just a broad overview. We were thinking about including network schematics of our office networks. We were worried it was going to take up too much time today because we have so much we want to cover. In 2018, Brian and I and several other professionals did a law society conference, how to use technology to improve your family law practice. We've received a lot of requests for that conference for people to watch it again. We contacted the Law Society. They've re-released the conference. It's available for free at the Law Society store. In that conference, we include the schematics and all the stuff. A lot of the stuff we're not including in today's meeting. So if you actually want to see a diagram of what our networks look like in 2018, it would be a good start in terms of how to set up a network.
Yeah, and we've changed things since then because we're now mostly cloud-based. We're
Right.
using moved to Clio and Net Documents and Office 365, so that we're not as reliant on the Office network. And this, all of our lawyers have laptops, and they can work completely in the cloud, which is really, really great.
Right.
But let's
And
talk about.
not everybody has the staff or the offices that Brian and I do. So your network might only be 1 or 2 people, but we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So getting set up is a challenge. There's an increased pressure on the system due to the number of people working from home. The tip today with respect to getting set up is just be patient and mindful that there's a new load on the system. One of the tips Brian has is to maybe work at off hours if your system's starting to show a slow connection.
Yeah, one of our law clerks starts really early in the morning, and she says that her network works much better early in the morning when less people are using it. So, yeah.
Yeah, the neighbors and everything else. Yeah, and if you're in a rural community or in the country, obviously the network is not going to be as stable as if you're in downtown Toronto or you have fiber connection. So the next slide is going to be hardware and existing laptops and desktops. So again, with respect to hardware, there's an increased demand, so it's harder to find now. Supply chains are being choked up, so a lot of this technology is coming from Asia, and those supply chains have now been interrupted because of the pandemic. The tip would be the cheapest item isn't always the most appropriate. You need to get what if it's a desktop or a computer, you're going to want to ensure it meets the needs and your requirements.
So Russ, we ordered some new
Go ahead,
laptops.
sorry.
So we ordered some new laptops, and we got a partial order. And the man helping us with the order said that's what they're doing is that there's so much demand that people are getting a partial order filled, so that they're spreading it out among people. And but eventually, a couple of weeks later, we got the rest of our order filled. So yeah, there's a lot more demand for good hardware.
And there's lots of options. One of my associates needed a new laptop. We ordered it from Costco online, and it showed up 3-4 days later. But the supply chain is starting to thin out. You also need to be mindful of what you're plugging into your computer. May have an issue with sound or your monitors if it's not done correctly. Desktops don't usually have speakers, so if you're trying to understand why you can't hear anything with Zoom, maybe your desktop doesn't have speakers. If you remote into your office network, Zoom's not going to work because you're going to be remoting in from the computer in your office, not the computer at home. So little tips like that you need to be mindful of.
Yeah, that's something we discovered the hard way, Russ, is that if you're on the remote server, Zoom doesn't work at all, and so you have to be outside of the remote server. But
Right.
if you've got documents that you want to show a client and they're on the remote server, you can still do that. You can still share the screen of the remote server using Zoom with your client or whomever. And so you can still be on the remote server, but you do it in a different window than your connection with Zoom, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Network stabilities are next topic. So we're in a Zoom meeting and you may get a warning saying internet connection unstable, or it's patchy, or it freezes up. You're wondering, is that me or is that the person I'm talking to? And then you wait a second and then it kind of catches up. So a good tip I'd suggest right off the bat, if you search speed test in Google, on the bottom right, you'll see a little blue box. You get a bunch of search results, but Google has its own speed test. So if you push the blue box, Google will test your network and tell you how fast your internet connection is. It's like a little speedometer, an RPM gauge. So if you don't know where the instability is coming from, first run a test on your network, see what your speed is. It'll tell you the results. It'll say your internet is very slow or it's very fast and can help handle multiple screening devices. So if it's not at your end, you'll know it's the person you're talking with. If it's at your end, then you're going to need to put in some steps to see what you can do to improve the stability of your network. Again, the tip from our IT person is be patient. Demand is very extreme right now. A lot of people who are working from home need to be mindful that if they have kids, they may be doing their school online now. Netflix may be running. A lot of us may have spouses or partners who are also working remotely from home. So a lot of this uses up the bandwidth that you have available. Consider upgrading or switching to a better network. The example my IT person gave me was he's getting complaints from a certain part in Toronto where Rogers was particularly bad for some reason in that neighborhood. So they switched over to Bell and it was fine. Another part of the city, Bell might be bad and Rogers might be better. It's just the infrastructure that they have. So consider using a different network. Also, my tip here would be use redundant systems. We built redundancy into our office network. So we have 2 internet connections. We have multiple backups. So if one internet connection goes down, the other internet connection automatically comes up through something called a Barracuda switch. You can build redundancy into your home as well. So if you're on Bell, consider getting Rogers or a different internet service provider as a redundant internet backup. This pandemic could last several months. As professionals working remotely, the internet is essential if you're running settlement meetings or you need to check email. So certainly consider putting a redundant system into the home. You can try a Wi-Fi booster if you've got.
I just wanted to comment. My laptop we have is connected to our router by way of an Ethernet cable. So instead of using Wi-Fi, we're wired right into the router, which is the best you can do. But we also have other devices on Wi-Fi, and so I bought a Wi-Fi booster, which has just been incredible. It was about $80, and it really improved the quality of Wi-Fi and the speed of items connected by Wi-Fi. Yeah. Another real small tip is if your internet is slowing down, you might just unplug your router, wait a minute, and replug it in and plug it in again, and you might find that usually clears out whatever's stuck in the router and speeds things up as well.
That's probably the first thing your service provider will tell you to do. Unplug it and call us back in 20 minutes. So that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Just with respect to the Wi-Fi boosters, we have a treadmill in the garage. We put a booster out there. I've got one in the attic. I'm in the attic right now. So that's a great tip, Brian. Last ditch resort, you can still set up a cellular hotspot to connect to the internet. Mind you, that could be costly. You want to be mindful of the data program that you're on and maybe increase your data.
So you have video conferencing takes a lot of bandwidth. And so I've had some meetings where things weren't working well, and I had to ask my 2 kids and my wife and her uncle to maybe shut down a couple of the devices, and that helped us continue with good connectivity. The other thing I want to emphasize is you don't want, if you're going to have a settlement meeting or a collaborative meeting or a mediation or even a meeting with your client, you don't want it to be all about the technology. So I really encourage you to practice, 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 practice for yourself, practice the use of the breakout rooms with friends or other colleagues. Practice with your clients in advance of the collaborative meeting so that the technology is not the focus, but rather the family law issues that you're trying to deal with are the focus. So spend some time working that through before you get on those meetings.
That's a great tip. So if you're having a collaborative practice meeting, just with the professionals before you bring the client in, or when you do your pre-brief, see how your technology is working.
Absolutely.
Losing work and addressing backups. So this is another big problem people are experiencing when working from home. Sometimes you're going to get an unexpected crash. Try to back up everything fully and regularly. If you're able to save your information to the remote computer, that's going to be a lot safer than simply saving it on your desktop or your laptop at home. That could pose a security risk. There could be privacy issues with respect to your client's data and information. Other members of the family may be using that same desktop or laptop for other purposes. So if you're able to store it on the office network, that would be my recommendation. Also be mindful of your battery life. So if you're on a laptop, you want to check the battery life. Sometimes if it dies on you, you're going to lose everything that you've just been working on.
We use Office 365 for Word and all the entire Office suite is on Office 365, and it automatically is constantly doing a saving and backing up to the cloud. So that really gives me a sense of security that I'm not going to lose as much if something goes wrong. So
you want to build in a redundant system too. So in addition to the cloud, have a hard drive backup somewhere that you can access, just in case you can't access the cloud for some reason.
yeah, we have a disk backup in our office for the remote server and the main server, and we also back it up to another server in Toronto, which is an hour and a half to 3 hours drive away.
Right.
And so we have lots of backups in case something goes awry as well.
And if there's a fire or a flood or a theft, you'll have your data somewhere else. So if for some reason your computer is stolen or damaged in some kind of catastrophe, you have your data saved and ready to go.
Okay.
Time for a poll, Brian?
Yeah, it's time for a poll. We should have some music playing. It's poll time. Okay, so we wanted to see how you're protecting your data and the various ways. I like the answer to my first one, Russ. What me worry? I'm thinking of doing a plan soon. So hopefully there won't be too many in that category, but there might be a few of you.
I wonder if anybody's using floppy disks. You remember those things?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe for those who don't know, Brian, you want to, while we're doing the poll, want to tell people what a VPN is?
Oh, a VPN is a really great thing. And what it does is it encrypts the communication from one computer to another computer. And so it's a really important thing to have when you're accessing your computer remotely. And you can get them, there's apps that you can get and lots of ways of getting a VPN set up. So it really adds a significant layer of security to your system.
Yeah. It's a virtual private network.
Right. Okay, so we're getting some results in, and we've got 74% of you have voted so far. We'll just wait a couple of more seconds, and then I'll share the results. By reminder, Michelle, if you could just post on the chat just to make sure people know if you have questions. We have a Survey Monkey that you can put your questions in on that Survey Monkey. And then we're going to have another webinar to respond to the top questions. Maybe we'll just categorize them as questions we can answer, and the real tough ones we'll ignore completely. But we'll have that webinar in a couple of weeks. So feel free to post your questions to SurveyMonkey. So I'm ending the poll now. and I'm going to share the results. So you can see how, oops, sorry, how, what people are doing. 48% are using, I'm sorry, I got cloud-based software, which should have been cloud-based software, but I guess you figured out what I meant.
Is Klaus
48,
your cousin?
yeah, 48% of you are using Klaus's uh, software. Uh, they're using backups. 36% are backing up on disks or other hardware. Or wow, so look, 36 and 19. That's what 55% have a backup system. That's not enough, folks. You need to do backups. This is really, really important. This is 2020, need to have backups. So I sure encourage you to look at what you can do to back up your system to have better security. I'll stop lecturing now. Okay, now let's
Interesting
go back.
results.
We're going to talk about security threats.
Yes. As we just talked about, my advice would be restore everything on your remote server or in the cloud. Be mindful of who's around you when you're working. You should have passwords on your computer and login profiles to ensure security. Brian, you
One thing
want to
we
talk
did,
about? Go
Russ,
ahead.
one thing we did is we've encrypted our laptops, which means that if someone leaves their laptop or it's stolen, that it would be very, very hard for someone to get access to anything on the laptop because it's completely encrypted. And that was just a program that was available on the laptop itself. It's called this was a Surface Pro, and it was called a BitLocker. You turn it on and everything's encrypted, and then there's a special key, a code that you keep so that you can get access yourself, but nobody else can do it. So that's
Sort of
another
like
tip.
sort of like Mission Impossible,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about dual authentication,
Well,
Brian?
that's another thing we do as well is we use a program called Duo, D-U-O, which is a dual authentication system. And so what happens is to get access to uh, anything, you have to get a code off your phone and input it into your computer. So we do that with Clio as well. That we get a code from Google Authenticator on our phone, which we have to enter into the computer in order to access Clio. So that adds a layer of security. So dual authentication is because if it's unlikely you're going to lose both your computer and your phone at the same time. That's the theory behind it. I mean, that's possible. It's probably something I could do, but most times you're not going to lose both items at the same time. And so it just makes it harder for the thieves to get access to your computer. We're going to talk a little bit about spam. We get so much spam, and people are really upping their game with respect to spam nowadays because so many people are working from home. So you need to be very aware of any emails you're getting from people you don't know who it's from. Yeah, I have mine set up so any email from Russ just goes right to junk. Uh, but you want to make sure
I
that
thought you blocked me.
you just want to protect yourself, not obviously open any attachments from people that you don't know.
Just on
And
that note, yeah, we're seeing increased attacks on our networks using spam, and it's getting pretty sophisticated. You'll get an Excel spreadsheet of some sort, um, and most people just click on those, but they're hiding viruses in these fake emails with spreadsheets. Also, check the email address of the person sending it to you. I'm getting staff members who ask me, "Did Russell, did you just email me?" And I'll say no, and then they'll click the email. It'll be Russell at some other address, not the firm website
right,
address. So,
and the address might be just slightly different. Maybe it's Russell with
right,
one S, or
yeah,
Alexander with an S instead of an X, or something.
yeah.
And it looks, when at first blush, it looks like it's an email from you, but it's not. And that's how they get in there with scams. as well. So you have to be very careful.
My tip is if you have an IT person, if you're not sure, send an email to them and ask them if it's spam. The danger is obviously we've heard of people getting their data encrypted and then demands for ransomware Bitcoin being made before you can get your data back. That occurs, you need to report it to Law Pro. You need to report it to the Law Society. You also need to report it to your clients that their data has been compromised. And then you're going to be shut down. You're not going to be able to do any office work until you can get your system back up and running. We can't stress enough the importance that you do not let a virus into your network through spam of some sort.
Yeah, and one thing, we have a policy with respect to memory sticks that we don't allow anybody just to plug a memory stick into our network,
Right.
because they can inadvertently be carrying a virus. And so we have a separate computer that we use to check any memory sticks. And we don't need to do memory sticks anymore. It just needs, if you have got some documents to send in, send them as attachments, or if there's too many documents, upload it for free to Google Drive or Dropbox and send a link. You just really we don't need to use memory sticks. And there's so many good alternatives to that are much safer than the memory stick.
If your network is wiped out, it could be days or even weeks before you get it up and running. So be careful.
Be careful. Practice safe computing. Okay, marketing. Well,
oh wait, we have one more one more thing I want to talk about before we get to marketing. This is a pet peeve of mine: Wi-Fi clouds and public networks. This has always been a big fear. When I saw this device called a Pineapple introduced at a conference that I was attending. So what these devices can do is create a fake Wi-Fi cloud and use any name that they want. They can even use the name of the network that you've put up. Or if you're living in a condo, for example, it can use the name of the residence that you're in. Don't use public Wi-Fi and don't use the neighbor's Wi-Fi. Sometimes the neighbor's got a better cloud or is faster. Don't log on to theirs. They may not be secure. Don't share your Wi-Fi passwords with your neighbors. If somebody can access your Wi-Fi cloud, they can access your computer potentially. So you're going to want to update all your passwords for your Wi-Fi networks. And as Brian mentioned earlier, using a VPN is a great way to create a secure porthole if you're in a Wi-Fi cloud that you're not sure of. So if you're living in a big condo in downtown Toronto, it's likely you're going to get 20 or 30 Wi-Fi clouds show up. Unless it's a Wi-Fi cloud that you know of and that's secure, don't use them. Set up your own, change your passwords. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, we've had all this depressing talk about security threats and hackers and Zoom bombing. So now let's get into some fun and some positive news, which is marketing. Marketing has changed significantly since the pandemic has begun, and social media is king now, which is good news. You know, people are at home, obviously, and they're on their desktops. They're not on their mobile devices as much. The number of people using desktops to access our website has dramatically increased, and the number using mobile devices has dropped substantially. And they're using social media. I did a search the other day. I was telling Russ, the interactions on our Facebook page has increased by something like 32,000%. It was unbelievable. People are at home. So this is good news for all of us, because Facebook is so easy to use and easy to promote and boost posts on Facebook to get more audience. So that's there's more than Facebook. There's YouTube. Videos seem to just be really. Is that your face in the background, Russ?
Yeah, don't bother me. So listen, let's talk about apps for a second. My son's actually on there too. It's not just me. So these apps are seamless and they're easy to use, like Brian said. So The analogy I would use is, and this might not be a good analogy during the pandemic, is your website's like the warehouse. These apps are the retail stores where your clients are going to consume your information and find you online. Facebook is easy. That's, most professionals, their ideal client persona will be in Facebook. You can tailor any promotion that you do by age, gender. You get it right down to the neighborhood and the postal code if you want to. Very effective. Twitter is a great way to communicate. Instagram is growing exponentially. When you
I use
advertise on,
LinkedIn. I have maybe 12,000 contacts on LinkedIn, and you can post articles, repost articles there. It just raises your awareness in the community. And
yeah,
LinkedIn, I like LinkedIn because usually these are people who can afford our services. And so it's a very effective way of communicating your message to the public. And, it's free.
yeah.
Uh, it's amazing how many people are watching videos now, and it's so easy to make videos, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, in a couple of minutes.
Just on that point, you can also, when Brian's going to talk about how to make it, but when you make these videos, you can make them for whatever platform you're using. So if you're doing Instagram, use your cell phone. If you're doing Facebook, turn your cell phone sideways and it'll go widescreen, and load the video right into that social media platform. And it's more likely to get watched and shared if you load it directly in.
Okay, we wanted to talk about some of our branding efforts, and you do some great things in your community, Russ. Talk about what you've been doing.
Yeah, any marketing efforts I think should be community focused, and there's lots of examples of what you can do. This is a program we're running called Save a Slice, where we're delivering pizzas to doctors and nurses in hospitals and first responders. So we're picking local family-run pizzerias in communities where we have offices, and we deliver 50 pizzas a day throughout a number of shifts. So it's a great way to give back to the first responders. It's a great way to support the businesses in your community. There's other programs we have. There's a gift card program. So businesses who are actually closed, you can still buy their gift cards and you'll use them later when they open up. But it just helps those small businesses with their cash flow. Shop locally. A lot of small businesses will still deliver to you, or you can deliver to you online. So you can shop locally online and support your businesses. Lots of people, and I know Michelle started doing this, they're making masks and scrub hats for first responders. Just another way to give back to everybody who's going above and beyond. There's a whole bunch of other local initiatives. These are just a few examples.
We're starting by the end of this week. We're launching a campaign to encourage lawyers and other divorce professionals to donate to our local food banks. There's many food banks in Simcoe County and York Region where our offices are, and they're under huge pressure right now because there's so many people who have become unemployed and are going to the food bank for meals. And so we're starting a campaign. We're going to have a page on our website, hopefully by the end of the week, listing links to the food banks, and then we're going to be promoting it in social media. And this is really helping the food banks, which is a great thing, but it's also raising brand awareness. People see that we care about the community, that we're a caring business, and people like to go to businesses where the people care about their community. So it's a win-win. You're helping the food bank, but you're raising brand awareness and a positive image in the community, which is good for everyone.
And even in larger centers like Toronto, there's little pockets of communities that you can support. So it's a great tip. Podcasts, I think this is low-hanging fruit if you want to market. Very easy to do. Usually we would use professional recording equipment, but now we're using Zoom and other equipment. The sound quality isn't as good, but the messaging is great. So focus on what clients are looking for, what information they need. Speak in their terms. It's easy for professionals and lawyers to speak a different language or legalese. dumb it down. Talk to them about what they need to know in language that they're going to understand.
Answer their problems. That's what people, the clients want to, is answers to their issues and their problems.
Right.
And so with the videos that we're doing, we're trying to answer the questions that they have, the concerns, their worries, and there's lots. So
Yeah.
there's lots of material for you to do in podcasts. You do a great job with podcasts. Videos also work well.
Just on podcasts, my tip would be keep it to 20 to 40 minutes. If it's longer, break it down into multi-part series. You can use your other colleagues as guest speakers to talk about a certain subject,
Yeah,
and then
I've
promote
done
it on
some
all the
podcasts
social
too.
media platforms that Brian and I just talked about. Get it out on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the platforms. You can use it to market there.
Excellent. So making videos, it has become even easier now that Zoom is here. So you can see on the screen on the bottom left is the Zoom. You just can press a button that says record. We're recording this webinar right now. And you make sure you press record on this computer. And the reason is that if you record it to the cloud, Zoom has 200 million uses per day right now. And
Yeah.
so if you record it to the cloud, it might not be available to you for days or maybe even weeks because they're just so overrun with requests. So just record it on your own computer and you'll have access to your video within minutes. And then what you do is you go to YouTube. You should set up your own log into YouTube, have your own account with YouTube, and
Set up your own channel.
set up your own channel. Super easy to do that. And once you've logged into YouTube, you have to look on the right hand side of the screen. You can see that little kind of stylized camera with a plus sign on it. Look for that, and that's how you upload the video. So you just upload it from your computer to YouTube, and then you follow the questions. They make it so easy now. They ask you for the name of the video. They ask you whether it's going to be public. We use um, uh, we make videos for training purposes internally. So those videos are not public, and you click private, and then only people who have the link to that video can see that video. But if you're going to use it for social media purposes, you obviously make it public. And then you go to once the video is created in YouTube, you take that link from YouTube and plunk it into Facebook or LinkedIn and Twitter and everywhere that you can on social media platforms. And voila, you have a video in social media. It's so easy. So you can, when you're recording on the computer, you don't even need to have someone else on the call, so to speak. It can just be yourself. You open a Zoom meeting and no one joins it except you. You press record on this computer, and or what we've done with our office, we've had conversations among between myself and three of our lawyers to discuss various issues, and that works very well and is interesting for people to watch, and you see different perspectives. Might not, if you don't have any colleagues in your own firm, get a hold of another colleague. Russ and I have done these calls. He uses it to promote himself in his community. I use it to promote myself in my community. So we're helping each other, and it's so easy. So
Yeah, just a few tips on video that I would add. Most smartphones take amazing quality video. So it's really easy to do. If you're loading it to Instagram, keep it under a minute, then you're likely to get more views. YouTube likes longer videos, 5 to 10 minutes. There's lots of things you can do to help. There's lots of videos on how to do longer videos. If you want to be creative and do something a little different, TikTok is a platform that's exploding. I think it's got about 800 million users. I know a lawyer on TikTok who's got an account with 35,000 followers.
wow.
Lots of people don't even know about these platforms, but it's more of a younger generation, not to date myself. But certainly, I think we're seeing the rise of YouTube again. 5 or 10 years ago, everybody thought all searches were going to be video, and YouTube got bought out, and then nothing really happened of it. And then we went back to regular search. Uh, because of the isolation, because people want to feel connected, I think video is increasing. And there's certainly people want to be engaged, and we want engaging videos. It's a great way to market your professional services firm. A lot of professionals don't like the idea of appearing before a camera. They're not confident. It's easy. Once you do it a few times, it's really a great way to get your name out there.
Okay, we just got a couple of reminders. Michelle, if you could upload the link to the materials in case people didn't see it in their email or it went to junk. And also, Michelle, if you could put in the chat as well the link to the SurveyMonkey in case people have any questions, feel free to post them there. We're going to have another webinar on April 27th at 4 p.m. We're going to send you an invitation so that you can join if you're interested. And what we're going to do is try to answer many of your questions at that upcoming event. Now, if you're a collaborative professional, I wanted you to be aware that we have the Ontario Academy of, Ontario Association of Collaborative Professionals is sponsoring a basic training on Zoom. I don't think this has ever been done anywhere. And the instructors, Deborah Graham, Allison Anderson, and Sheila Brown are doing 3 days of it. And my training group, Bev LeMay and Carrie Heinzel, we're doing some parts of it as well. How we're doing it is a little different. We're doing it for 2.5 hours twice a week for 5 weeks on Zoom. There also will be about 1 hour of homework to do between each week as well. So as you can see on the screen, there's a link to the website to register online. And you know, if you're a collaborative professional, you want more people to have those skills. So send it out to the people in your communities so that
I just
they
want to
can.
be mindful of our time. I just want to point out, all the professionals here, we all know 2 or 3 people who could probably be great collaborative practice professionals. This is probably, there's a good chance this could be the only game in town for the next several months or even longer. So if you know professionals who might consider doing collaborative practice training, this is a great way to do it. And it's a great way also to grow the collaborative professional base.
Absolutely. So the last comment is, you know, keep calm and lower your
Be
expectations.
patient. Yeah.
You know, I've had conversations with divorce professionals who have been in tears because their expectations are too high. These are strange times. We are, as Simon Sinek said in his presentation, we are in a dark tunnel right now, and it is difficult, and there's no doubt about it. So you're not going to be as productive. You've been given a lot of information here during this webinar. Don't expect to understand it all. You're going to get a recording. You can go back and look at parts of it that might be of interest. You can look at the materials. Don't be overwhelmed by it. Lower your expectations. You're not going to be as productive as you were a month or 2 ago. And just be good to each other, okay?
Yeah. Maintain your routine as much as possible. There's a lot of great stuff in the materials and the handouts. So, and again, you can send in your questions to us and we'll try to answer them the best we can next time around.
Just be patient with each other, okay? And be well, be safe, and reinvent yourself. And when we get through this tunnel, you're going to be thriving. You're going to be doing really well. Good luck,
Great
everyone.
stuff, Brian. Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.